higher education is failing students, and we're all really bummed about that. And the only way that we're going to be able to actually solve this problem is if we work together. You see, I never actually thought I would be the kind of person who talks about higher education. I wasn't actually supposed to even make it to college. See, I grew up in poverty in rural Montana, and the only talk of going to college was when my dad would make jokes, and he said that if I really wanted to go, I should do what my brother did and win a state championship in wrestling. True story, I actually did wrestle for like a week, but cauliflower ear and like, just that's weird, no. So I managed to eke my way through high school, and I was one of those students who, you know how all our students are at sometimes represented in a data point? Well, I was one of those students who, there were 2 data points that missed. One of them was that I graduated high school with a 2.3 GPA, and the other was that I was an undefeated state champion in debate. And no one actually connected those 2 and thought, maybe we should talk to her about what's going on, or college, this cool thing. So, you know, I managed to finally stumble to a community college. And again, with the limited or bad information that many of our students have, I made some assumptions that millions of other students make. I assumed that if grown-ups who were smarter than me were going to tell me to take out student loans larger than any amount I'd ever seen in my life, that, you know, clearly the grown-ups would be watching and they would make sure I made good choices and I registered for the right classes and it would all be totally great. And you know where the story goes, right? I end up barely making it through, and I graduate 7 years later with a bachelor's degree, and I had 50 extra credits that I didn't need and the student loans to show for it. And there are way too many students who this is the story. Now mine ends up working out, but this is absolutely the issue that we need to focus upon, which is that higher education was actually never designed around students. Now cue my slide. We have this problematic belief that that somehow this was all intentional, but it wasn't. The truth is that none of us have had the opportunity to even sit back and think about our design. We have to be everything to everyone. We are about knowledge and discovery and teaching and research, economic impact, economic development, social impact, long-term career outcomes, safety and security, and efficiency and accountability. And I don't know if you want to just throw something else in on there, and we'll do that too. So there's never a time when we can all take a step back and ask, does this actually make sense for students? Do our processes actually make sense for the people that we're trying to serve? Because when we do, as you're going to learn over the next few days, we find that there are very obvious booby traps and landmines that were not set on purpose. Because the nice thing about design problems is you can realize that it's not about intention. I don't know about you, but I've never met anyone who works in higher education who doesn't work in higher education because someone changed their life. Everyone here? Somebody, some teacher, some faculty, somebody changed your life, and you owe it to higher education. You want to pay it forward. That's literally, I've never met anyone who there's any other reason. They don't do it to make money, contrary to popular belief. So it's not about design. There's nobody, or it's about design. There's nobody twisting their mustache in an ivory tower planning to set booby traps for students. It's actually because we haven't had the luxury of time and energy to take a step back and see how we're getting in the way of our students. Now, this is really important for us to focus on, because if we're going to solve the challenges facing American higher education and frankly the world, we need to be actually focusing on the big question in the room, the challenge. The first is we need all of your help because they're facing a shortfall of college degrees of about 11 million. But basically, we fail half of all the people who walk in the door, and people expect degrees for things they didn't used to. There's a lot more complexity to it, but generally speaking, we need to ramp up our degree productivity. And we can talk about, I know people are loving to talk trash about the value of a college degree, but we all know it's still going to produce $1 million more in your lifetime and is the single best way out of the poverty cycle. The second piece is that really needs our attention is that for the first time in US history, low-income students are now the majority of students in public K-12. So the students who are going to be coming are going to be from a background that, spoiler, we don't do very well with. Most of you have seen this slide. You'll see this slide many times. It's a famous slide. I call it my Tim Rennick slide. And basically, the kids who were born in my income quartile, that very bottom line in the 1970s, we had about a 6% chance of getting a college degree out of every 100. And despite all of our talk about progress and innovation and everything's better and hope and change and you can do it, it's now only about 9%. So we've made almost no progress, but we have made progress for wealthy students. In fact, we've doubled the achievement gap. So we know change is possible. It's just time for us to focus on the students who are going to be coming. So this is a challenge that the UIA cannot do. No campus can do, no type of institution can address. It's going to take everyone, and it's going to have to require us to actually work together. Because the bigger question in the room is, well, I mean, it was actually perfectly designed to do that. The higher education system as it's currently designed, unless we start questioning some of the fundamental assumptions, it was perfectly set up for us to fail students. So we need to spend some time, take some time away from campus, and actually dive into some of the prompts, some of the directives, some of the incentives, and the rewards. There are a few of them that we should talk about that are challenges that are facing us as a sector. The first is our culture. We pit universities against each other in like a Hunger Games, and the winner turned away the most students. Yay! That is ridiculous. That is absolutely the opposite of what America needs. We have a culture of competitiveness and polish everything up and don't tell anyone about what failed. Because if we don't talk about failure, we don't have to admit that it happened. And the truth is, every campus has a mere $1 million failure on their campus that we just don't talk about. And if we don't talk about those things, then we are forcing other people to repeat those failures, and the people who write those checks are students. And we're all bummed out about it, right? Like nobody actually wants it to be this way. But we actually have to change our culture so that it rewards the courage of vulnerability and that it encourages people to trust each other, to share about the truth. I don't actually care about your headlines. What I do care about is, what'd you learn? What are the first 5 steps? What do you wish you know before you started? And that's what today, and that's what the UIA Summit is going to be about, is creating a space for you to have conversations with people where you actually get to ask the question that might seem impolite in other spaces. Collaboration. I think a lot of people assume that collaboration is the solution, but traditionally, collaboration can be kind of a bummer. It can be extra work. Collaboration is the unpaid work that people expect of you. It's added onto your plate like a hat, like a really uncomfortable hat. And that's problematic. We actually need to acknowledge that when we collaborate, sometimes it creates more work, and so therefore we should actually invest in creating space and capacity on our campuses. And there's some other issues that we see when people try and just throw collaboration at things, which we're going to talk about. One of them is that oftentimes when they have collaborations emerge, if they just have a consultant staff them, consultants too often are confused about who the client is. The client is not the funder. The client is the overburdened administrator who's actually doing the work. We have to design all of our work, and that's why this event is designed around you. It has to be designed around the people actually doing the work to make them be able to do it better. We also see a lot of collaboratives that come forward where they have only one funder, and that's problematic because then that means that you're subjected to their whim. So we're very fortunate that we have 9 funders that are supporting the UIA, and we are constantly trying to find more to keep it so that there is a level of civility amongst everyone, but there's a balance of who's driving the ship, I guess. So collaboration in itself is not a perfect solution, and in fact, it needs to have some tweaking to get it perfected, and we hope that we talk about those things. Communication. When we were first starting the Alliance, I was an ACE fellow. I was free labor for a year. That's the secret sauce is find somebody who has nothing to do and doesn't have a job to go back to. That really works. That's the Michael Crow secret. So what I did is I spent a year and I went to more than 50 campuses. And I asked presidents and provosts and chancellors, I asked, what do you think you're doing that's innovative? And then I would follow up and say, what do you think someone down the road or like near you is doing that's innovative? And I never found a single leader that had an answer with any specificity to that second question. Because we actually don't know what everyone else is doing. Because frankly, we have too much on our plate. And you actually it's very difficult for us to know, what are you really doing? It's a lot of headlines and hype, but we actually need to be able to kick the tires and get up under there and understand exactly what you did so that we can try and replicate it. The way that we share ideas is glacial. It's conferences where people come as individuals and you go home and I hope you remembered everything. Best wishes. And then you go home and you have to try and evangelize and I swear, there was this one really good idea. I don't know all the details, but you should have been there. And next year we're going to go, or wait, we'll send a team to their campus. That is our diffusion strategy. It's like, hark, I heard a good idea. Let's send a team. And then we send another team. And I don't know about you, but this seems like we are literally the smart people who give out PhDs in communications, right? Like, I think we can figure this out. And so we're trying to figure out ways that you can innovate the way that we bring people together and that we share ideas to hopefully result in you being able to take action. So the last piece is that we know that change is hard, period. And it's so much harder when it's alone. And these are not just my ideas because I hope that for you. It's actually because I've spent the last 5 years working with campuses trying to figure this out. How could we actually change our culture? How could we improve the design of collaboration? How could we actually fundamentally shift how ideas are spread so they actually spread? And so this is what we're talking about for a bit, and I promise you're not going to hear a ton about the UIA after this first session. We're going to actually talk about ideas. But I want to make sure you understand that the UIA is not any better than you. These 11 campuses, when they first got together, they didn't actually know each other. They didn't trust each other. They randomly were in a room where the presidents and chancellors started talking about an idea. What if we could actually work together to scale up? What are you doing? Oh, really? I want to do that. Well, I think I'm doing something kind of similar. Well, I don't know. And that was kind of how the conversation went. And these 11 presidents and chancellors, yes, the institutions are all similar size. It's not because we think that large public research intensives are the best. It's actually the most resistant to change. And so if we could actually figure out how we could innovate, scale up what works, and diffuse everything we learn with this group, then perhaps we might learn something that could help the rest of higher education, and that we hope other networks form and connect with us so that we can truly transform the future of higher education. So these institutions committed to produce more degrees across the socioeconomic spectrum, transparently share our data and hold each other accountable, and innovate together. And it's actually been working, but the other pieces you need to know is that for all the money that we raise to help the UIA, it's matched by the campuses. So there is legit skin in the game. They are matching dollar for dollar the philanthropy that's raised. And our campuses really are sharing, to the point that some of them are sharing student unit record level data. So I want to tell you that it's been so easy, and it's been just wonderful, and thank you. And you know, no big deal. But it's actually been really hard. And it's been totally worth it. It's been worth it because of the people. You're going to get a chance over the next few days to see some of our people. And let me tell you, I'm kind of partial, but my people are great. The fellows are amazing. The liaisons are incredible. I show up for work because these are they're the kind of people I want to hang out with. And they are magnetic about this work. And it's incredible and it's exciting. But again, it has not been very easy along the way. And it's because of the people that we keep doing it. So these campuses, nobody thought that it would work. When we first announced our initiative, people rolled their eyes. Oh, great, another thing. We announce a lot of things in higher ed, not a lot of follow through, really good at announcing. And we've been able to set some ambitious goals. We said that we were going to produce at least 68,000 degrees by 2022. And when we first put this goal out there, at least half would be low income. The White House didn't believe me when I submitted it for their College Opportunity Summit. And they made me show them the data that proved I wasn't making it up. Which is cool, because we're now on track to produce 94,000 in that same time period, and we're likely going to exceed that even further. So that's... And as I always say, I literally do not educate a single human being. So it is all the campuses. I don't do any of that. It's mainly about their leadership and that they really are serious about it. Because the thing that people don't understand about UIA presidents and chancellors is that almost every one of the founding members was a former first-generation low-income or student of color. And when you grow up and you actually turn into a college president, you sometimes want to change the world. And that's what's happening. The piece that's mattered the most is that we've managed to increase our low-income degrees by 29%. They don't even know this number. They thought it was 25%. We got the new numbers this week. It's 29% in the last 4 years. And so we're making progress, but there are some things that we've learned that we hope are going to help you, because again, this is not about us. This is not the UIA show. This is your show. This is your event. This is about you, and we want to tell you the stuff that's been hard. We want to share with you the stuff that's been helpful. I want you to sift through, see what works for you, discard the stuff that doesn't, and then try and find your tribe in this audience, because they are here, and hopefully build something together. So we've learned some lessons. First, you need a team. That's why you're all here in teams. So congratulations, you've already implemented the very first lesson. This was a radical concept for us, but it actually has been profound on our campuses, because there's a lot of people disparately working, but the purpose of being charged by your CEO as being responsible to report back on this one metric and that you are expected to deliver, that's been important. We also realized that that burden of work was a real thing, and so what we did is we created a fellowship inspired by what we saw at Arizona State University. And they have something called the UI Fellows Program that you're going to learn more about. You're going to hear more about the Fellows Program, but the point is, they're amazing. Please don't steal them. But essentially, we are training a future leader who is being trained in change management and shepherding innovation, which we know the future college presidents of tomorrow need. We've done some scale projects that have been very powerful for our campuses. Here's the thing you need to know about the Alliance. Not everyone is a lead. Not everyone is the innovator in any category. In fact, the beauty of our design is we have some campuses who are a lead on this, but a laggard on that. We have some campuses who are in the middle of the pack on this, but they might be leading on this other thing that you didn't even think about. And what we're trying to do is move from this to back and forth and see if in the process of scaling, we actually learn a method for scale that can help others. Because that's what's been missing in higher ed. So much tinkering, totes adorable, but actually not helping our students. So we are actually trying to figure this out. So with each one of these, different campuses have been at different points along the threshold of adoption. And so with predictive analytics, proactive advising, strategic financial interventions, you're going to learn about those things. Here's the part that matters. We didn't throw spaghetti at the wall. Each of them is connected. They build upon each other. It's too difficult for you to say that you did something and not actually prove it. But with some of these, like predictive analytics, you can't do proactive advising if you didn't really do predictive analytics. So be thinking about the projects and the initiatives that you want to advance, and know that you should think through the steps of what might come next and what comes before. The last thing I want to say is that we need your help, which literally my slide just did. So there is no way that we're going to be able to actually solve the challenges facing higher education. We're not going to be able to fix it for kids like me and many of you unless we all come together. And we need to not be so focused on looking good in front of each other. We need to focus on whether or not we can help each other and we can actually share the hard stuff, the stuff that's embarrassing. Failure is the most powerful currency in the UIA. And here's the thing you need to know. People share their stories with those who've earned the right to hear them. And so we have something at this convening that is Chatham House rules. So essentially, no attribution. So people are going to share some hard things. You should definitely share the story and the lesson, but please don't attribute who says it, because that's the only way that we can actually build trust. You know, we always have our convenings and there's 70 people. Our attempt to scale is 400. And we're hoping that we can create the kind of magic that we experience in those smaller convenings and bring you all into the fold. But this is innovation, we don't know. And so that's one of the core tenets, is that you actually needed to get to know each other. So I hope that you will sit with different people. I mean, your team is great, but you're going to actually get team time. Spend time and get to know each other, because you'll find that what I have found is everyone is struggling with the exact same problem. And if we can all spend our time learning about each other's challenges and actually working together, we can truly transform the future of higher education. I hope you'll join me. Thank you so much for being here. It really means a lot.